Welcome to the weekly recap. I'm Matt Wacker. Missouri S&T's Dr. Larry Gregg began studying Las Vegas history and culture in the 1990s. He has since become an author, speaker, and overall expert on the subject. He recently sat down with Lee Mentink to chat about Elvis Presley and the King's early years in Sin City.
Well, the Elvis story is I'm not the first one to tell this story about Elvis in '56. He's had 3 good biographers, but I was able to pull upon some other material they hadn't seen yet, so I was able to flesh it out a little bit more. Elvis was remarkably successful in 1956. He began recording a year earlier, but his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, negotiated a deal with RCA, a big label, and he records Heartbreak Hotel. It's his first number 1 hit. And he'll have 4 more during 1956. And TV shows want him. The Tommy Dorsey, Jimmy Dorsey stage show has him on, I think, 5 times. Milton Berle has him on his show twice. Steve Allen has him on his show. And Ed Sullivan has him on his show twice. So one of the Elvis biographers said by the end of November of '56, probably 200 million viewers had seen Elvis Presley.
Oh my!
So he's doing great with recordings. In fact, by June he's selling about 50,000 singles a day of his number 1 hits. By the end of the year, he's selling as many RCA records as all the other pop artists in the RCA catalog. So he is the premier artist of 1956. And one Hollywood producer, Hal Wallace, who made Casablanca, said, I see something in this guy. So he did some screen tests in April '56, and Wallace signed him to a multi-movie deal. So everything's going well for Elvis in 1956 until Colonel Parker decides he needs to take him to a more mainstream venue. Elvis had always appeared in high school gyms and country fairs, but he hadn't appeared before a nightclub. So Parker negotiates through the William Morris Agency a deal for Elvis to appear at the New Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas. And it doesn't go well. There are no teenagers. There are people roughly my age, and they're dressed up for an evening on the town, and they go in and sit down, and they're going to listen to this wonderful orchestra. Freddie Martin has this wonderful orchestra that he plays popular versions of classical tunes and Broadway hits. And they listen to a comedian, Shecky Green. And the closing act is Elvis Presley. And the people in the audience had not seen Presley. And one man actually, according to one of the people there, actually jumped up, started cursing, and said, I'm going out to the gambling tables. I can't take this noise. And then I found an interview with a woman who lived in Las Vegas for many decades, and she went to all the shows. And she said, I went to that first Elvis show, and I thought it was just vulgar. And the reviews of his performance were almost exclusively negative. Whether it was the national press or the local press, they said he didn't understand his audience. And Elvis admitted, this wasn't my kind of audience. And he years later told an interviewer, after that first night, I went outside, I just walked around thinking how awful it was, how much of a failure I'd been.
Did Vegas change, or did Elvis change that later on by the late 60s and obviously the 70s? He was Vegas itself. Like, what changed? What?
Well, in '58 he goes into the Army, so he's out of circulation for a while. And when he comes back, Colonel Parker largely has him making movies. And they're all financially successful. And he records lots of albums. And he goes away from rock and roll to ever more ballads. And a lot of critics said he's just sold out. He's not a rocker anymore. He's just going after the mainstream audience. But he wasn't performing live. And he didn't do that until real late 1968. And the singer sponsored a live performance by Elvis. And it was the highest rated TV show that year, 1968. It was his comeback. He was performing live, and everyone could see he could still do it. And that led Colonel Parker to negotiate with a brand new hotel in Las Vegas called the International. It became the Hilton, and now it's called the Westgate. so it's had many different names. Largest hotel casino in the world. Their opening act was Barbra Streisand, but they signed Elvis to perform for 2 weeks. And he performed every year the rest of his life there. Every concert was sold out. And that's how he became the Las Vegas icon, because he was just a smashing success. And in between those two dates, 56 and 69, he also made the movie Viva Las Vegas, which was his best movie, which is not saying a lot, because the Elvis movies are about getting to hear Elvis sing and seeing Elvis with attractive women. That's what they were about. But actually, it's a well-made movie, and some of the critics said this is really a movie that's a great commercial for Las Vegas, because you see all the sights, you see all the chorus girls, you see the fabulous hotels.
So do you think, was that a strategic move for Elvis, making that movie? Or was it just happenstance?
Absolutely, and he liked Las Vegas. Even though he had so much of a failure there in 56, he liked the whole milieu of Las Vegas. According to a Memphis newspaperman who interviewed him while he was there, he'd stay up till past dawn, and he wouldn't get up until like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he had these two shows a night. He played 4 songs twice. That was it. So it wasn't onerous, and he just had a good time. He'd go to movies, he'd flirt with girls, he'd have tourists take pictures with him. He was very good about that. He'd sign autographs, and he fell in love with Las Vegas. That's where he went to escape.
That's fascinating. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Larry Gregg. Back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you very much. A groundbreaking ceremony was held in the High Point Industrial Park for Rolla's new solar energy farm. Crews with MC Power companies have been mounting piers and installing wire for the panels on the 20-acre site east of Brewer Science. When complete, the facility will provide enough electricity for around 300 to 350 average-sized homes per year. MC Power hopes for the facility, which will be Missouri's 5th, to be online by the beginning of April. Christo's House of West Plains held their annual chocolate festival at the Barn. With more on that, here's Ben Gronowski.
Thank you, Matt. I'm here with Kelly at Christo's House, and today we're going to be talking about, well, a little bit about the Chocolate Festival and what that was all about, but as well the Christos organization as a whole. First things first, the Chocolate Festival, probably one of your more anticipated events.
Yes.
How did the event go for you guys?
The event went really well. This year we started in a new venue, the Barn, off of Highway 63. We raised $9,901, and for a first-time effort at the new venue, that was pretty extraordinary.
Well, the Chocolate Festival has been going on now for about 10 years. We do it every February, and the reason that we do this is to help us raise money for the shelter and for other services that we provide through the outreach. And the outreach offices, we have 3 different locations for those. We have one in Texas County, one in Oregon County, and one in Howell County.
How does that money help you guys in the community and, the folks you're trying to reach?
The monies that are raised in any of our fundraising efforts are rolled back into the support and services that we provide to women and children who've been abused.
But it also helps when we have other people come in that may not need to go into the shelter, but maybe they need help getting into their own apartment now. They've left their abuser and they need to get in. We can help with deposits when we have our donations. We can help with hotel rooms. We can help with tickets, bus tickets, if they need to get back to where their family is. Maybe they got down here and it went bad, and so now they want to go home. So the money that we raise definitely goes right back into the organization.
We also provide outreach services, which include counseling, court advocacy. We can provide help and support in ladies reclaiming their lives with their kids, getting housing. Basically, whatever the need is, whether we can provide the service directly or provide the advocacy to get the services, that's what we're there for in the community.
What are red flags? What can I do as a friend to help, get someone the attention that they need?
Certainly, there's significant red flags include isolation. You see bruises. You see nervousness, anxiousness. He's controlling her. He's clocking her time. And when I say he, it's not always just a man abusing a woman. It could be, you see a friend who's male kind of having the same red flags. As a bystander, the first thing is not to judge or criticize, ask questions, what's happening, is there something I can do to help, offering, phone numbers for resources, giving them our hotline number, encouraging them to call and talk to somebody. It's a very courageous thing to, one, recognize that you're being mistreated or oppressed, abused, and then it's another courageous step to make that phone call and admission that I might be going through this. How do I get away from this situation?
A new method of cancer screening developed at Missouri S&T could soon hit the market. The test, known as the P-scan, detects the chemical signs of cancer in a patient's urine. Dr. Yinfa Ma is the test's creator. Dr. Ma says the system is being developed to diagnose breast cancer without invasive or uncomfortable procedures, but hopes the test can also be used for detection of other forms of cancer. Wyoming-based company Cancer.im Incorporated, a social network for cancer patients and survivors, announced an agreement with the university to commercialize the product. The National Cancer Institute estimates that over 1.6 million people will be diagnosed with cancer this year. Several monuments were erected along the trail at Veterans Memorial Park in Rolla on February 5th. So far, 7 of the planned 17 monuments have been installed. The monuments will be dedicated to those who served in all major military engagements from the Revolutionary War to Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. While the engraving of the remaining 10 monuments is ongoing, the park hopes to have them in place before Memorial Day in May. Each monument is 4 feet tall, 18 inches wide, and weighs roughly 1,000 pounds. The MFA building in downtown Rolla will no longer house the Rolla Farmers Exchange. General Manager Frank Brown says no room was left for expansion at the site. The organization's new 20-acre facility is scheduled to open this month. Lee Mentink spoke with Brown and toured the new complex on Highway 72 in Rolla.
What prompted the decision to build the new property?
We started looking when I came back to the store 4 years ago. I had originally managed the store from 89 to 96 before I went to work for MFA Incorporated for about 17 years. And when I came back, we talked about we wanted to grow the business, and we started even then with the idea that eventually we would like to grow to another location. And as we grew and we added our lawn and garden section and those type of things, we had less and less room in town. We have 2.2 acres, I believe it is. And it just got to the point we didn't have room to expand anymore. And we saw potential for growth. And when this property came open, we came out and looked at it. It's 20 acres. And we decided, hey, this is what we need to do. It gives us room to expand. It's to the point now in town, there are times where our customers don't have room to park. We have plenty of parking out here. Semis would come in and block our customers' access to the store. That won't happen out here. We have room where they'll pull into the back of the warehouse. They won't even be out front where the customers can see them. So a lot of things tied into it that we just felt like now was the time to do it. So the property came open, and it'll be almost a year ago that we looked at it, started construction and everything. So we're excited to get into it.
Well, I know your grand opening is coming up just in a week or two
Right.
here. I noticed that you've made a lot of efforts to sort of preserve the historic feel of the property. Can you tell me a little bit about that, Frank?
We have. There's 2 barns on the property. The big white barns, everybody has seen them over the years, the big white barns with the green roofs. Those were built back in the early 50s. One of our customers comes into the store, said his great uncle built those back in the 50s. They were a dairy barn at one time and various uses over the years. They had stalls in them. And we looked at possibly tearing those down, but we decided no, there's too much historical value in them. So they were getting pretty dilapidated. The roofs were caving in on them, but we came in and put new roofs on them. And the first one, the one closest to the road, is going to be our new garden center. Our garden center manager, Carol Watoski, she's very excited about getting into that. So, and we all are. Then the second barn, we're going to use that for hay and straw storage for our customer sales, and then storage down below too. So, it was an opportunity to use what was here and preserve some of the history. And when we designed our new counter inside, as you come into the new store, We use a lot of the old wood out of the stalls and the tin out of the old buildings to build that counter, and it really looks neat. It's unique. So
it's a nod to history
exactly.
while still looking forward.
Right, exactly.
So what day is your grand opening going to be out here at Green Acres?
Well, we'll have a soft opening if everything goes according to plan. Of course, something can happen, but right now we're looking at February the 15th to be our soft opening. And then somewhere end of March, 1st of April, we'll have a huge grand opening. Our garden center will be open then. It won't be open right now, of course, a little too cold for plants, but then we'll have a customer appreciation grand opening. We'll have make a huge event out of that.
The Rolla Farmers Exchange has operated in this area since 1922. A man from Cuba was killed in a boating accident on January 30th. According to the Missouri State Highway Patrol's Water Division, 51-year-old Roger Farrar and his passenger were both ejected from their boat on Indian Hills Lake in Crawford County. The patrol states that the boat made an abrupt turn, which caused the two to be thrown from the vehicle. Farrar was not wearing a safety vest. On January 26th, Rolla firefighters responded to a house fire at a trailer located on Marlette Court in Rolla. According to Fire Chief Ron Smith, RFD found a heavy fire on the porch and front portion of the trailer and were able to quickly knock the fire out. The occupants of the residence were apparently out of town at the time. The Rolla Police Department and Missouri State Fire Marshal were contacted and launched an investigation into the nature of the fire, which is ongoing. At their February 4th meeting, the Rolla Board of Education approved the hiring of John Franks as their new head football coach. Franks served as Lebanon's defensive coordinator for the past 11 seasons and was head coach at Stockton High School prior to that. Franks is replacing Willie Howard, who announced his retirement after 5 years of coaching at Rolla High School. Finally, the Denver Broncos were crowned champions of the National Football League on Sunday, beating the Carolina Panthers 24-10. The celebration continued on Tuesday with a parade in downtown Denver. This video comes courtesy of a dedicated viewer who lives in the Boulder area. That's all for now. Join me next week for another edition of the Weekly Recap. Thanks for watching.
Be a below-zero hero for Special Olympics Missouri athletes. Come out of winter hibernation and take a plunge in your choice of 14 different frigid bodies of water this January and February. Sponsored by your local law enforcement, the proceeds support more than 16,500 children and adults with intellectual disabilities in year-round sports training and competitions throughout the state of Missouri. To find out how you can get involved, visit somo.org/plunge. So go get your family and friends together and take the plunge to make a difference in an athlete's life today.